Hi, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. We're going to give a couple minutes for people to have a chance to join before we get started. But if you'd like, you can drop a quick hello in the chat, maybe share where you're from. Okay, I see people coming in and joining the chat now. Welcome from Oregon, Kentucky, I saw Orlando, New York, someone from SnapEd in Ohio, Georgia, Idaho. It's going so fast, I can't keep up. Wisconsin Extension. Welcome, everyone. Northern Virginia, South Dakota, Grand Rapids, Michigan. Hi, everyone. We'll just give a few more seconds to make sure everyone has a chance to join, and then we'll get started. Welcome, everyone. Okay, I see Pennsylvania, Texas, California. Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. You can go to the next slide. So I'm Katie Weston. I'm the program manager with the Partnership for Food Safety Education. Next slide. So a little bit of quick housekeeping. We just have a few slides to go through, and then we'll get started with the presentations. This is the order for today. We'll have Kelsey with the CDC, followed by Kim Smith with the FDA, and then Aaron Lavallee with the USDA. And the Q&A with all the speakers will be at the end. We'll have a Q&A with everyone at the same time, but you're welcome to add your questions to the Q&A box at any point. Next slide. Some housekeeping. The chat's open. Feel free to say hello and chat as we go along. But make sure, like I said, the questions go into the Q&A box, so it's easier for us to see those at the very end when we're doing the Q&A with the speakers. And watch out after the webinar for a survey. We'd appreciate if you take that so we can help improve our webinars and make them better in the future. CEUs. CEUs are available today from ANFP, CDR, NCHEC, and NEHA. There's quite a few ways to get those certificates. We're putting them into the chat box today. They'll be included in the follow-up email, and we'll upload them to our website, fightback.org, under free resources. If you are seeking NCHEC credits, please make sure you complete the questionnaire by Monday, July 8th to get those credits. So if you're not familiar with the Partnership for Food Safety Education, we're a network of about 13,000 health and food safety educators. We have about 40 partner organizations and liaisons with the CDC, FDA, and USDA. And our goal is to work together to advance trusted and consistent science-based behavioral health messaging. And this is why we're here. Every year in the US, about 1 in 6 people get sick from foodborne illness, usually called food poisoning. 128,000 are hospitalized, and 3,000 die from eating contaminated food. So this is why it's so important what we're doing here today. So we're going to get started with a quick poll on our topic for today. Have you reached age 65? That poll is going to pop up and you'll have a minute or two to answer it. So hold on, wrong poll. If we could switch to the poll 1. Give me just a second. It seems like we launched the wrong poll, so I apologize for that. Okay, So poll one should be up now. Have you reached age 65? And the options are not yet. Nope, but I'm looking forward to it one day. Yep, I'm in my golden age, over 65 and forever young, and I'll never tell. So if you just take a couple seconds to take that poll, and then we'll share the results. Just a couple more seconds. So get your answer in now if you haven't. Okay. Let's go ahead and see the results from the poll. It looks like 53% said not yet, 25% said nope, but I'm looking forward to it one day. 4% said yep, we're in our golden age. 17% said over 65 and forever young, and 1% are never telling. So next up, I'd like to introduce you to our first speaker, Kelsey Schwarz. She is a health communication specialist at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and she currently manages the food safety portfolio for CDC and works closely with HHS, FDA, and USDA to co-manage foodsafety.gov. Welcome, Kelsey. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So for CDC, over the past few years, we've been conducting research into how to better disseminate food safety messages to our key audiences. And so to do that, we've conducted surveys, focus groups, in-depth interviews, message testing, literature reviews, and environmental scans. And I will be presenting some of those findings to you. But as a quick reminder, the research results that I'm going to share today have not yet been published. So please do not share them outside of this webinar. We're excited to share them with you, but at this point, we can't disseminate them any further. Next slide. So although we know from FDA's Food Safety and Nutrition Survey that older adults are more likely to own and use a food thermometer, many of our older adult participants from our research reported preferring to use visual cues to see if meat was done instead of actually using a food thermometer. And so this was because they viewed themselves as skilled and experienced cooks. And so this might mean that even if they do own food thermometers, they might not be using them. We also found that older adults are more likely to report washing or rinsing raw chicken during prep than younger populations. And this was reported both in qualitative research and in our survey research. There was also low reporting by older adults of avoiding foods that might be at higher risk for contamination. And this was especially true for the foods that are often linked to listeria. But on a positive note, older adults, specifically those 65 and older, are more likely than younger adults to refrigerate perishable foods within that 2-hour time limit that we recommend to everyone. Next slide. So from our research, we learned that older adults prefer certain sources for food safety information over other sources. And they seem to prefer to learn about this topic from healthcare professionals and traditional media more than online sources or other sources like celebrity chefs or teachers or even friends and family. And as you can see, as I mentioned, online sources like social media are not as preferred, but specific to that, there is Pew research that shows that almost half of adults in this older age group report using at least one social media site regularly. So it's always good to keep that in mind. And that research shows that they're normally using Facebook or YouTube as opposed to other social media platforms. Next slide. So from our message testing, we learned that people 65 and older are resistant to food safety messages that give directives like do not eat or avoid, similar to the message we tested on the right of the slide. And they actually prefer choices and terms like beware of, in addition to messaging that to them feels empowering. They're also resistant to messages that they perceive as paternalistic or restrictive, likely due to their years of experience cooking. In their mind, that equates to a lot of knowledge. And they perceived that the impacts of food poisoning did not actually change with age, as you can see from the quote on the right. And in fact, they did not think that they were at any higher risk for foodborne pathogens like listeria compared to younger individuals. Next slide. So CDC's consumer food safety messaging and outreach currently and historically has provided information on how to practice safe food handling at home and prevent foodborne illness. And much of this content is already covered on foodsafety.gov, which a number of us on the call help manage. It's also covered on FSIS website and FDA's site. And so we're updating CDC's consumer food safety website to provide more of a unique voice in this food safety space. And so we're going to draw on CDC's foodborne illness surveillance data and our food safety research findings so that we can focus on those at highest burden, and that does include people age 65 and older. Next slide. And to reach this older population, we're addressing the main knowledge gaps and the necessary behavior modifications through messaging that's framed around choice and empowerment. And these messages will be disseminated through sources that are trusted by and often utilized by this particular age group. So that would be avenues like healthcare provider messaging, radio ads, social media channels that they're more likely to be on. And we're also planning on working with partner organizations that are trusted by this particular demographic group. Next slide. And so we've started on this work by creating products specific to the age group that offer choices, like our Safer Food Choice table and the updated social media messages that link to that resource. And on this slide, you can see the social media messages that have been updated, linking to that resource. And if you go to the next slide, this is the resource that they're linking to. This is the Safer Food table, and this is the PDF version that can be found on our website. We also have an HTML version that's on the website. Not quite as pretty as the PDF version. And if, as you can see, in addition to listing the riskier foods, which we've historically done, we are also including safer food choices as our audience prefers to know their options. And so we've also highlighted how this group is more likely to get seriously ill from food poisoning, because as I mentioned, that's something that our research participants seem to be unaware of. And you can go to the next slide and hold for 1 second on pressing next, because that's the radio ad. So before that plays, just to give a little context, we created a radio ad for older adults to highlight their increased risk for foodborne illness and to offer simple steps to help avoid it while cooking at home. And if you press next, I believe it'll go ahead and play the audio. Hopefully. Maybe actually click on play on the slide that you see. Oh, it looks like it's playing. Well, okay. Well, I'll try and figure out how to link that in the chat later so that everybody can hear, because I can't hear it on my end, so I assume no one can hear it. This tends to happen with PowerPoint audio. So if you go back to the previous slide though, thank you. So if you could hear the ad, you would have known that it's pretty positive and it's upbeat. And again, I'll try and figure out a way to share that in the chat. And the distribution of it focused on counties that had the highest older adult population rather. And so that was Sumter County, Florida, Charlotte County, Florida, and Greene County, Georgia. And the ad was broadcast approximately 4 times a day for each station. And so in January, which is around the time that we put this out, we saw a 32 to 400% increase in web traffic across our food safety site. from these specific counties, and that was compared to January of the previous year. And so that range in web traffic is really just dependent on which page we were looking at out of the ones that were referred to in the ad. And so this increase in web traffic could in part be due to people hearing the ad on the radio and then looking at our website. And so if you go to the next slide, that's just the closing slide. And so this is all the information that we have right now from CDC related to our research for people age 65 and older, and how we've started to implement that research into our newer messaging. But I'm very excited to hear from my colleagues at FDA and at FSIS about their work with this age group. So thank you, and happy to answer questions during the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Kelsey. Again, if you have any questions for Kelsey, please put those in the Q&A box and we'll answer them all at the end. And we'll try to make sure you get a copy of that recording that we missed. I'm sorry that didn't play correctly. So next, I'd like to introduce you to Kimberly Smith. Kim is the acting branch chief for the Education and Outreach branch at the U.S. Food and Drug Administration's Center for Food Safety and Applied Nutrition. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you so much, Katie. That is definitely a mouthful. So maybe with the reorganization and moving to the Human Foods Program, that'll be a little bit shorter of a name to introduce us. But I'm very excited to be here with you all today. We can advance to the next slide. Thank you. Today, we'll spend a little bit of time talking about the materials and resources that the Division of Education and Outreach and the Education and Outreach branch develops and puts together. All of our materials are developed and disseminated and evaluated use science-based research informed health education materials. We have a number of resources beyond food safety that we just want to mention here and highlight for you, but we'll spend today talking about our food safety materials. One of the key points we often say is that we have to remember how key nutrition and food safety work together. So that's one of the reasons we always try to share and highlight some of the food safety and nutrition materials. And I'll point out one in particular, one of our set of resources that actually brings nutrition and food safety together. Next slide, please. So our office works primarily to address and develop materials and information for consumers. We use and work with a number of different tactics, and we know that health educators such as yourself are key channels of getting communication to our target audience. We work closely in developing materials for health educators, dietitians, teachers, and others to ensure that we're able to reach our audience, because we can't do this by ourselves. So it's great to have the Backfighter Network to help us disseminate these key messages. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So this is our food safety hub of all materials. We can definitely slide past it. The food safety hub links to all our food safety materials, but today we're really going to focus on the food safety for older adult booklet that you see here. I'm not sure if you can, we'll have the link to put in the chat later, but the material is also downloadable in English and Spanish. This booklet covers information for a variety of populations that may have vulnerabilities to foodborne illness, from transplant patients, older adults, patients or people with cancer, diabetes, HIV, and other autoimmune diseases. As I mentioned, this material is available in English and Spanish. It's also available to be ordered as a print copy in English from our Education Resource Library, and I'll share that information with you later. Next slide, please. So the booklet is quite comprehensive. I'm sorry, could we back up just one slide? There may be a delay, I think. Let's go back. Okay, thank you. So the booklet is quite so the following slide from here. Sorry. Thank you, right here. So the booklet includes a number of tips and information. It's quite comprehensive. It's a total of 20 pages. So it's definitely helpful to receive a few of these copies if you're able to order them. It's a great resource to have to share for health educators to refer back to. And if there are copies, if there's someone that needs to have a printed copy, that's always great. It's a comprehensive booklet. It covers all these topics and maybe a few more. And on the next slide, we'll see a particular snapshot of some of the tools. Thank you. Some of the tools that are included. This chart shows different foods and provides the high risk versus the low risk options of the different foods that we know that all consumers eat, but they may have some vulnerability. Older adults may have vulnerabilities eating some of the higher risk options. So this provides very specific and detailed information, hopefully very clear in a chart format for consumers and older adults to be able to identify options that may be safer for them to utilize when they're picking foods for their diet. So this, again, this resource is on our e-resource library. It's available for download, and it's our key older adult material. But the next few slides, I'll share some other materials that will be helpful for older adults as they're looking to keep their food supply safe. Can we move to the next slide, please? The continuing medical education program that we worked with the American Medical Association is available for healthcare practitioners or health professionals. It's an opportunity to get CE credit, but also an opportunity to learn in detail of treating and diagnosing foodborne illness. This may be a resource for some of you if you have a healthcare background, but it also may be a resource that you may want to share with colleagues in the field if they're interested in participating in this program, which is online, and the CE program is available through the American Medical Association's website. Next slide, please. So we have a number of food safety videos that are available online. The foodborne illness video series include 3 true stories of victims who survived very severe foodborne illness. The stories walk through the scenarios and the different experiences that each one of the patients survived from, if you will. The everyday food safety videos are very short tips that can be easily accessible for older adults. This may be something useful to share during a meeting or during a presentation or conversation with an older adult to walk through the different tips and steps for keeping their food safe. Next slide, please. Okay, the food safety in your kitchen resource. I mentioned earlier the intersection of food safety and nutrition. This campaign was developed to bring those two together. It's targeted specifically for chefs and writing recipes, as well as individuals that are cooking at home for themselves or their families. We understand that it's really useful for consumers to understand and have those food safety tips baked right into the recipes so that they're able to follow and prepare food safely. This package of materials include a shopping list, storage tips, as well as other resources like a social media toolkit, which would be more useful for any health educator or public health provider working with older adults and customizing some messages to utilize these materials. Next slide, please. Supplement for Your Knowledge is one of our resources that we recently developed to provide information on the benefits and the risk of dietary supplements. We know that many older adults may be interested in utilizing dietary supplements to enhance their diet, as well as to provide additional resources and nutrients that they may not be getting. So it's always informational to provide and have access to understanding the different aspects of dietary supplements. This includes fact sheets, infographics, and videos. And we have some other information and resources available, such as a CME video and a social media toolkit, which will be helpful to you all as health educators working with older adults. Can we move to the next slide, please? And we have the CE component with the dietary supplement, much like the CME with the food safety. It walks through the steps and provides practitioners a background and understanding of how to work with patients and clients to educate them about dietary supplements and what to look for. Next slide. So our food facts are definitely key resources for older adults. It's not necessarily based on a particular campaign. All of our food facts are identified by different food topics. They're web-based as well as PDF-based. Most, if not all, of our materials are available in English as well as Spanish. They're also available to be ordered in small quantities for print, as well as having them downloaded to your computer or device. We have a variety of topics. One of our newer materials that may be of interest to older adults would include our food chemicals, food facts, as well as the allergy or buffets, juice. Any of the food facts may be of interest because they provide detailed information on keeping food safe. Next slide, please. Feed Your Mind is our initiative to focus and share more information with consumers on GMOs or genetically engineered foods. This campaign includes a variety of materials as well as listed here. Again, this is just an additional resource that may be of interest to older adults as well as health educators in providing a variety of information to this population. Next slide. Food waste, we know, is very important as there are a number estimated at 30 to 40% of food that's wasted in our supply in the United States. So it's very helpful to have resources to teach consumers, but I think this would be helpful for older adults as well, of how to address and reduce food waste at home and when dining out. And this resource is also available on our website. Next slide. So fish advice and our next resource after this is a little bit different. So our key audience for fish advice are pregnant women and parents. But I wanted to share and include this because we know our generations are changing and our family dynamics are changing. And oftentimes older adults, grandparents, or aunts or uncles may be preparing food for young children. So I do think it's helpful to mention that the fish advice is available to provide information about choosing what foods and what fish to provide and share for young children. So this, again, is just another resource. And we can move to the next slide as well. It's very similar in nature. The Closer to Zero initiative is one of the initiatives that we're working on developing formative research now, and we'll be developing consumer education materials and disseminating those hopefully the latter part of this calendar year or early 2025. Closer to Zero is focused on reducing the exposure of contaminants in food, often known as heavy metals. Again, this is a resource that may be useful for older adults that are providing or preparing food for young children or young family members that they may be in their family dynamics. So again, it's a resource to keep your eyes out for, and I think this may be helpful for some of the audiences in a portion of the target audience for older adults. Next slide, please. And I always like to include the food safety health educator evaluation toolbox. I'm sure you're all familiar with this. It's just a great resource if you're looking to develop consumer education materials or campaigns. It's a great resource to help put those initiatives together. And this will include all the resources that are listed on the screen. And of course, we developed this with a partnership, so it's always a great way to share and continue to promote this tool. Next slide, please. So that concludes the various resources that we have, key resources for young older adults, but also other resources that may be of interest to promote food safety, as well as tools and tips of keeping their food safe and healthy when preparing food at home, as well as on the go. The Health Educators Resource page is a great hub. The link is here, and I'll drop it in the chat as well. It's a great place to find all of our health educator resources. I mentioned the Education Resource Library. That is the place where you can order resources and materials, in particular the older adult booklet that I highlighted earlier today. Again, that is available for download, or you can request a limited supply of free printed copies in English, but we also have the Spanish version available on our website as well. The News for Educators is our e-newsletter that comes out quarterly. That's a great resource for finding out new and helpful tips for older adults, or any of your food safety resources that you may be interested in developing. Next slide, please. So this concludes the presentation, but I do want to leave, and these links, and I think the slides will be available with the FDA Food social media. We have a new Instagram account, which directly shows and shares all of our food resources. So definitely follow us on social media and get all the latest and greatest information for food safety, and in particular, older adults. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kim. That was so many wonderful resources for reaching older adults. So next, I'd like to introduce you to Aaron, who's our final speaker for today. He currently serves as the director of the Food Safety Education staff at the U.S. Department of Agriculture's FSIS, which is Food Safety and Inspection Service. Welcome, Aaron.
Thank you, Katie. And I'm going to take us over the finish line here in this relay race across the three agencies. Next slide. So for those of you who are not familiar with the Food Safety and Inspection Service, we regulate meat, poultry, and processed egg products. And tucked somewhere way down the organizational chart is an Office of Food Safety Education and a staff that goes with it. And the work that we do is part of that farm to fork continuum. And the idea being that there are food safety steps that need to be taken at each step of the way. And we like to see it as our job is to put key information into hands of consumers as they are the last line of defense when they're preparing and consuming food. Next slide, please. So some of you may be familiar with the work that we've done, and over the years, we've had a wide variety of communication campaigns ranging from Ad Council campaign that we had running up through 2015. You may see us around the holidays, Thanksgiving, Memorial Day, back to school, a wide variety of campaigns that we do, and we're on doing media interviews, we're putting out content, we're on social media, and those are something that we do year round. We're trying to branch out on those and find some non-traditional hooks, and I'll get into that in a little bit. Social media, traditional media, we put up a lot of fact sheets on our website and on foodsafety.gov, and I'll touch on that on the closing slides. And for those of you who have been in this space for a while, we operate the meat and poultry hotline, and that's something that's been around for well over 30 years. We put the phone number and for that hotline on all of our content. So if you've seen the little pig or cow keychains or squish toys, it's on every single one of those. I know folks on this call have probably ordered those through us before to give out to their audiences. But we still have 5 folks, dedicated public servants who answer those live calls daily. They're there to talk, and I put that in here because one of our primary audiences are aging adults that call into that hotline still. One of the other items that comes under our portfolio is consumer research. This is something that we started back in 2015. And it has been really interesting as Kelsey and Kimberly talked about. It's something that the agencies have really put a lot of attention and energy into. And I think for all of us, it was a situation of, as communicators, we've always had something to say and to present to our audiences. But I think we all came to the realization, is it sinking in? Are we breaking through? Do we really have a full grasp of these audiences? And so each agency started doing research. We've all coordinated our research. We have a working group that meets regularly to talk about this research, and it's really yielded some interesting insights, and I'll touch on our recent research towards the end. And then, of course, partnerships, obviously the one that's hosting us today. But for us, this gets on to the topic of what Kimberly talked about and others, they really finding the right messengers for these messages. And that's where partnerships come in. I think, especially coming off of the pandemic, there is a swath of the population that may not feel that the government is the best messenger. And so I think relying on folks on the ground, relying on health clinics, and I'm going to touch on this in a little bit, faith-based organizations, really finding those trusted messengers to get this message across. And it's something that we try to touch on with our partnerships. All right, next slide. And I'm going to move fast through these. So at-risk has always been something that we have carved out time and attention and resources to. I'll highlight just a few minutes ago, one of my employees let me know that the Food and Nutrition Service just posted some of our content on the WIC resource system. So going after pregnant people and their unborn babies is very important. And obviously breaking through with the Food and Nutrition Service, they have a lot on their plate, a lot they're trying to communicate, but they also have a very large audience. So the same goes for older adults. We work a lot with various entities, Council on Aging and other partners to move this message. All right, next slide, please. All right, so our at-risk booklet has been around for a while, as you can see by that design and that font. We are currently out of them. I hesitated to put this up there, but it brings up an interesting conversation in that there is a lot of pressure to swing away from printed publications. And yet we're here today talking about an audience that still relies on and requests printed publications and uses printed publications. And so it's something that we're trying to find a balance. When we look at the demographics of the country and the largest swaths of the population are skewing younger, we want to make sure that we are responsive to that. But that doesn't mean that everything has to be done in an app or a QR code. And we have to be cognizant of the fact that we still have a large portion of the population that relies on these more traditional methods. So we are in the process of updating this. And this is something that will be available in the near future. We're trying to bring it into 2024 and have it last beyond. All right, next slide. Blogs and social media. This may be something that folks have seen. We put out a lot of content either through toolkits, both social media and blogs. Thank you. I see that comment. It's not always easy, but it is something that we're trying to hold the line on. Next slide, please. All right. And so here's a quick campaign I want to touch on. We're just coming off of this. This is a spring holiday campaign for those who practice one of the three major religions. The holidays for Passover, Easter, Eid, and then Ramadan all fell within a couple of weeks of each other. So it gave us an opportunity to reach out, and I think this is interesting for the topic of aging populations, because a lot of the demographics in terms of religious practitioners, believers and practitioners skew towards that. And so it gave us an opportunity to try to reach these audiences in a non-traditional way. This is not something we had done before. We translated this content into Hebrew and Arabic and Urdu and several other languages. And it was actually, from the initial signs, we're still gathering all of our data, but it was pretty successful. We went through venues and channels that we normally would not go through. We had uptake across various newsletters that we had not been in before, and listservs, things like that, that we had traditionally not touched or ever come near. And so this was a really interesting effort on our part, and it's something that we're going to take a look at and probably double down on again next slide, please. I apologize for going so fast, but I'm watching that time, and I know there are probably a lot of Q&A. I had mentioned Ad Council earlier. It has been several years since we've had a national campaign. We're currently in the development stage of a new campaign. And obviously one of our audiences are older adults. The imagery you see here is a very, very high level concept. We've started conducting, or we've completed initial interviews on this to get feedback. The idea is to tap into the concept of a telenovela or a soap opera. For some generations out there, specifically older adults, the Young and the Restless, General Hospital, those were all mainstays, and I think some of them are still on. I don't watch them. I did grow up with a grandmother who had them on all the time during the 80s. But the idea is to tap into that very dramatic setting. When we tested these with consumers, and including, we had some older adults in the demographics that we tested, it was pretty universal, the concept of what was going on. Most folks had a scenario. They started chuckling and saying, I've been in a kitchen situation like this. Maybe I was cooking a big family dinner. Somebody walked in, they made a mess. There was drama in the kitchen. So we're hoping that as we develop this further and test it, this is something that resonates a little bit more. Next slide, please. So kind of pivoting to some of our research, we just wrapped up a 5-year research project. One of this past year's research, so wrapped up in 2023, was a web survey, and one of the audiences we were targeting were older adults. And I want to focus on this section here in the center. One of the struggles we've had across all three agencies is trying to break through, and what we were trying to get at here are the audiences we're trying to reach. Are they primed for this information? Are they worried about food safety? I worry about food safety. I've got 3 kids. It's something that I pay attention to in the kitchen. But given everything else going on in the world, whether it's financial insecurity or school shootings, pandemics, climate change, floods, hurricanes, do people worry about food safety? And we've tried to get at this in several different ways. But when you look at these numbers, they're actually pretty fascinating. And I think they highlight the challenge that everybody in this space faces. 50% of folks in this age group saw foodborne illness as serious or as very serious. That's a great number. We want them to see it as serious. But then when you go down to the next line and we ask, how likely do you think you are to get foodborne illness in the next? That's not entirely cause for concern. It could be people answering, I'm very safe, I do all 4 steps, I'm not worried about it. But it really starts to show there is 37% is plus that 28 is, there are a lot of folks who don't think this is going to happen to them. And we all know from the numbers out there that it happens a lot more than it should. And then that final bullet, only 27% are concerned about contracting foodborne illness. And so these numbers start to paint a almost ambiguous picture in terms of what we're dealing with. Jumping down real quick, I'm only going to highlight that first bullet under the 3rd section, food labels. And with that, this is one area. We'll move to the next slide. older adults said they get a lot of their information from food labels. That includes manufacturer cooking instructions. But for those of you familiar with the back of meat and poultry products, there is a label on there called the Safe Handling Instructions. It's been around since 1994. We're in the process of doing research and proposing updates to that. That's all behind the scenes right now, but in looking at those updates that we're testing, we saw some interesting feedback. A lot of older adults, again, this is where we get into that push towards technology versus the pull back towards how older adults are getting information. And again, I don't mean that this is not a homogenous group. There are differences. But what we found was that a lot of the older adults that were in these focus groups were not interested in clicking through QR codes. There was a lot of skepticism and uncertainty. Where is that going to go? Who's gathering my information? And rightly so. We see that population run afoul with scams and just the target of so much misinformation and poor intentions online. But it does pose a challenge as we're being pulled in one direction to really hold the line and make sure we're meeting in that other side where older adults are. So we're in the process of wrapping up this research in terms of the focus groups. We are going to do a larger web survey with some updated safe handling instructions in August, and then at that point, a decision will be made at the executive level in terms of whether they want to update the label that's on every single one of those meat and poultry packages. All right, next slide, please. All right, foodsafety.gov, everybody who spoke today is responsible for putting all sorts of information and resources up there. Next slide. There's already a lot of content up there. It's something that all the folks on this that presented today, we've discussed about how we can keep strengthening foodsafety.gov, making it better. If folks have ideas of how we can improve that and what would be helpful for you as educators on the ground, please let us know. We're always looking for ways to improve this. Next slide. And then, of course, I have my folks back at the hotline, and I always have to put in a plug for them. You are welcome to share this information. There is a self-serve option if folks want to go and ask questions. It's kind of like using Google. They can type in a question and it'll populate an answer. But for those populations that do want to talk to somebody, we have Archie, Sandy, Michelle, Carolyn, and Lynn answering calls every day, and even on Thanksgiving for about 4 hours. So don't hesitate to direct folks there if they ever have questions. And I believe that's my last slide. Katie, back to you.
Thank you so much, Aaron. So we'll have a quick poll and then we'll get to the Q&A. So I want to encourage you to go ahead and get those questions in there now. And if we can go to the poll. Okay, so poll question number 2, and it should pop up in just a second. We've seen lots of great resources from all the agencies today, but which food safety resources for older adults would you like to see more of? Printable handouts and flyers, infographics and images, sample text that could be used for blogs and newsletters, or videos? I'll give everyone a couple minutes to get those answers in for the poll. And then after that, we'll go to the Q&A. I'll give you about 30 more seconds. So get your answer in quick if you haven't. Okay, let's go ahead and see the results. I see overwhelmingly 66% say printable handouts and flyers, and I saw a lot of comments about that as well in the chat. 17% infographics and images, 6% sample text for blogs and newsletters, and 10% videos. Thank you, everyone, for that. Okay, we will go to the Q&A now. And if you guys could come back on camera, please start getting your questions in the Q&A. And while they're doing that, I did manage to get the audio for that radio ad from Kelsey, so I'm going to put that in the chat so you guys can listen to that later. Okay, so I have a question for all three of you first, and then I'll see what we have from the audience. Why do you think it's so important to have targeted resources for specific populations, in this case, adults over 65? Or do you think it's important to have targeted resources? And whoever wants to go first is welcome to jump in.
All right, I'll jump in. I think, as others have touched on, from the research, we do see some differences. I mean, when we think about the technological changes that we've experienced just in the last 10 years, 20 years, it's absolutely amazing. And so generations get their information differently, they interpret it differently. And so I think really, we used to do a shotgun approach to our information. And I think, with some segments here and there, but I think right now, our focus is really on kind of this micro targeting and really trying to figure out what information people need to keep themselves safe and delivering there.
Yeah, I'd also add that from our research, we found that it's really important to not only give messaging about how to prevent illness, but why it's important to prevent illness. And so when we have targeted outreach or targeted messaging specifically for any demographic group, and we let them know why that particular group is at increased risk for foodborne illness, for severe foodborne illness, and give them some data points about that in whatever way we think is most applicable to that audience, then I think it's generally a pretty motivating factor once people realize that maybe they had low perceived risk, but they should have higher perceived risk.
Anything you'd like to add, Kim?
I would echo what both Kelsey and Aaron said, and just make one point. I do think in some of the conversations I didn't specifically mention, but our food and information center receives calls, and one of the calls that recently came in was an older adult, and they expressed the appreciation of being able to get print materials, but also it's unique because or having targeted materials are unique because people see themselves in the materials. And I think this goes back to Kelsey's point. It's not just for older adults. This is for any target audience. When people can relate to the information, when it's targeted messaging for them, it tends to be, based on research, a little bit more influential for them to take the information and potentially change or modify the behavior that they're learning.
Yeah. Thank you. Speaking of resources, one of the questions in the Q&A, this is directed to Aaron, but I think I saw other people were curious too, is the graphic that you shared available to share with consumers?
I believe it is on our site, but rather than make you go hunt for it, Katie, that's something we can get to you, and if it would be helpful to share to participants, glad to do so.
Great. Yeah.
I also see a lot of talk about thermometers, and I'd love to channel Oprah here and say, you all get a thermometer. We do have thermometers available. Right now, I think we only have about 800 on hand. But if the educators on this call and on the ground ever need them in small quantities, 5, 10, as part of their outreach and education, that is something that we do process and send out to folks. And again, it's obviously resource dependent, and times are tough, but I just placed an order today for another 1,600. So I'll put that out there. If you ever need thermometers, we know they're pricey for those on the ground, but it is the most important tool you can have in keeping folks safe. So reach out to us, and again, Katie can put that information on how to reach us, or it is on our site.
Yeah, great tip, Aaron. Yeah, and we'll share any helpful links to resources and most of the slides afterwards. So watch for that email. Okay, so from the Q&A, it doesn't say who, so maybe any of you could answer. This information would be very beneficial to soup kitchens and food pantries, even community shelters where older adults who are food insecure may frequent. Is there a plan to share this information with them on how they can improve the food service to their patrons? Anybody want to jump in with that one?
It's funny, that's a great question. I was just at the bus stop yesterday morning. One of my neighbors works very closely with I'm based in Washington, D.C., the D.C. Food Bank. I wish we had a better way to reach some of these entities in mass. We do get some requests localized, but I'm open to ideas or better networks to tap into to get this information out there.
So, thank you. Kelsey or Kim, anything to add? Kelsey, I saw a question for you. Are you planning to publish the research that you shared?
Yes, so we do plan to publish, we have a couple different publications in mind based on topics within our specific research. And so as soon as we get those off the ground, we will, Katie, let the partnership know so that you all can inform any of the educators and just your network in general with any links to published articles.
Great, thank you, Kelsey. Let's see what else we have. Okay, so what's the biggest or maybe a misconception you've noticed about communicating with older adults? I think I'd like to start with you on this one, Kim, if you're okay with that.
Sure. I think one of the misperceptions or disinformation pieces is really truly older adults understanding that there are vulnerabilities just because of their age. Just the lack of understanding, I've had a birthday and now I'm a certain age, and this puts me in a different category. Oftentimes it takes, some unfortunate situation for us to realize that there is a different, there are different steps that we need to take. I remember having this conversation with my mom a few years ago, just like certain foods that you really have to be cautious about eating, and giving her and others the tips for selecting safer options that are at lower risk. So just really truly understanding that, your age does provide a different level of vulnerability would be the one piece that I would say.
Any other misconceptions you've seen, Kelsey?
Yeah, that's a big one that Kim mentioned. I would also say that it's less of a misconception, but more of like a barrier that we face is that when we are telling people that are 65 and older that they should not be consuming certain foods or should choose the safer options, we aren't just telling them that they should modify that behavior during, for example, the extent of a pregnancy, which is what we do for people who are pregnant, or for parents who have children who are under the age of 5, where they will age out of this this increased vulnerability for foodborne illness or severe foodborne illness. So with these older adults, we are telling people that they can no longer ever consume ABC, right? So we need to figure out a way to get that information out there in as like kind and thoughtful of a way as possible. I think that offering options is really beneficial because it's less of that avoid language and more like, oh, but you could also, like I always joke that, like don't go to the deli and get a deli sandwich with the deli cheese and the deli cheese. Make it a panini instead, like what's another option? If you just heat it, it's a little bit better, right? Less likely for listeria that way. But we just need to be aware and figure out how best to message to a group who is being told that never again should they be consuming certain things.
Yeah. Erin, is there anything you'd like to add?
I mean, she just described my dad, so I haven't had that exact conversation with him. But somebody posted this in the Q&A as well, and this is a tough group to change, and a lot of that is that experience bias, right? We're coming along, and they've done 50 years worth of this practice, and we're saying don't do this, and it is a challenge. And I think that's where, again, these either trusted providers or there's a role. I know the work that Kimberly put up there with the AMA. It's really important because we may not always have that entry point to have that conversation. That's where these partnerships, and again, they're conveying tons of messages in any given checkup or physical. And so, but it is important to nonetheless try to get that through those partners.
Wow, great. Okay, we're closing up. I'm going to get in one more question. I might try to combine these. There's a couple questions about what do the agencies do to reach out to the 55 plus communities, and then another question about how are your resources particularly effective at changing behavior. So we'll close with those two questions. Whoever wants to go first.
So I think, oh, go ahead, Kim. I've talked a lot.
No, I was just going to hop in and say two great questions to kind of combine. I know at FDA, we work closely, as I think we've all said, with our partner agencies, the partnership, the federal agencies on the line and other federal agencies, and across FDA, right? We have other offices that have reach to target groups like the Office of Women's Health and Office of Health Equity, Office of Minority Health and Health Equity within FDA. So we work very closely with them to target messages and get those out when appropriate, and across the federal agencies and across the landscape of food and nutrition. So I think that's one of our key ways of trying to target messaging. We do have the opportunity sometimes to do small outreach for paid ads such as Google ads, and those can be very effective when we have resources to doing that. So those are the two key ways I'll say that FDA utilizes trying to target this audience.
Thank you, Kim. Kelsey?
Yeah, and in terms of behavior change, we are providing information about foods to eat, and also about the 4 steps that everybody should be taking to prevent foodborne illness. And so providing those steps that are key behaviors that can happen in the kitchen, we think is really beneficial in terms of potentially impacting behavior change. We are aware that some of our messaging has fallen a little short in the past. And so particularly if we're thinking about telling groups that they should not wash raw chicken, we know when we are telling individuals or groups that they should not do a thing, that sometimes there are cultural reasons why things are happening, experiences, past experiences, why people are continuing to do something if they've never gotten sick from it. So with that in mind, we have started to create some harm reduction messaging around some of that. So that, if you still choose to do this behavior, modify it just a little bit and it will be a little bit safer. And we think that can impact behavior change as well. That's what I can think of off the top of my head, other than just the continued research that we're all doing, where we are having not only looking at survey and other quantitative research to understand people's awareness, but then we're also doing qualitative research to really get that rich data to understand why people are continuing to do a behavior if they've been advised against it, and then any barriers that they may be facing to prevent them from behavior change.
Thank you, Kelsey. That's really good. Aaron?
Katie, I disobeyed your guidance, which was to not engage the Q&A because I was trying to get somebody my email address. So right as you were asking the question, I missed it. So you're welcome to repeat it, or I know we're out of time or getting close out of time.
No worries. And there are a few questions in there if any of our speakers want to type answers. The questions, I combined a couple questions here, which is your agency doing anything to reach out to specific 55 plus communities? And then how are your resources particularly effective at changing behavior?
Yep. Well, I will say that for everybody on the call, resources, we'll see what these look like in the next few years. It is getting tough. I think watching what's going on, with the purse strings in Washington, D.C. That said, I think it may mean that we just have to get more creative with the human resources that we have. Again, partners on the ground, trying to break through the noise. There's so many messages being bombarded at people these days. I think that is going to be one of the big challenges. I have a public affairs staff that focuses on nothing but breaking through and trying to reach those audiences. But for anybody on this call, if you ever have ideas, send them up through Katie and the partnership. We're always looking to join and collaborate where we can. But I think this is going to be, this audience is going to be one that we're going to be focused on for many years to come.
Definitely. Thank you, Aaron. So with that, we'll close the Q&A. Kelsey, go ahead. Sorry.
I'll put it in the chat. But just for everyone's awareness, if you are not already aware, late next week, CDC is doing a major overhaul of our website. And so I am going to put in the chat what our new food safety homepage will be. All of your existing links, if you have any on your web pages or that you have saved in your URL queue, those should link to the new website. But if there is any issue, please do reach out to me, and I will put my email in the chat as well. If there's any issue accessing pages that you frequently access from CDC for food safety in the past, I will help you find that link so that you don't have to dig around too much.
Thank you for sharing that, Kelsey. So with that, we'll close the Q&A. And we have just a handful of wrap-up slides, and then we'll let you get out of here. If we could go to the next slide. So some additional resources for this population from the partnership. We have some brochures in English and Spanish, specifically for adults over 65. Don't wing it. Covers safe poultry handling, and Go 40 or below is about storage of leftovers. So check those out at fightback.org. Next slide. Prep Yourself is a relatively new campaign on food delivery. It talks about all types of food deliveries, meal kit, grocery delivery, restaurant delivery. We do have downloadable print materials. We also have social media content, digital ads, and other resources on that topic. Next slide. Some ways to stay involved with us. Make sure you're following us on your preferred social media platform. If you're not getting our e-cards, you can sign up for those. Next slide. Some events to watch out for coming up. June 7th will be World Food Safety Day. We have some resources and a toolkit at foodsafetyday.org, and keep an eye out for more materials on National Food Safety Education Month, which will be in September. Next slide. A big thank you to our partners and our federal liaisons for helping us do everything that we do, including these webinars. Next slide. Final reminder about the CEUs. If you weren't able to download them from the chat, they will be in the follow-up email along with the slides that we're able to share and links to any resources. We'll also upload the recording from today on our website with the CEU information at fightback.org. It will be under the free resources tab. And again, reminder, if you are seeking NCHEC credits, please fill out that questionnaire by July 8th. Slide. And that's it. Thank you everyone for joining us. Bye everyone.
Bye, thank you.